Hello, welcome everybody. This is the May 30th, 2024 Board of Health meeting. For the record, it is 12:37. We're just getting the audio video queued up, so starting a little bit late. Please let the record reflect that we do have two individuals who have notified us they will be absent today. That's Commissioner Cuney and then Charlie Daranona, and we are joined virtually by Commissioner Waldriff. But if we could do a roll call for everyone else here. Ann?
Commissioner Josh Kearns.
Here.
Commissioner Amber Waldriff.
Present.
Councilmember Michael Cathcart.
Present.
Board Member Monica Bykowski-May.
Present.
Board Member Patricia Keinholz.
Here.
We do have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to board reports. So chair report, I'll combine that with our executive committee meeting. So we met last week, or 2 weeks ago, I believe. So mainly just focused on getting everything squared away for today's meeting, going through the agenda, and making sure that all of our items were in order for today's meeting. And so a great thank you to all the staff members who assisted with that. I will look, did any of the other boards meet? Budget and Finance? Was anybody present at one of those? Commissioner Waldriff?
Yes, we held our meeting as well, and mostly just focused on items to be brought forth for the agenda today. So I don't think we have anything else special to report, but appreciate the excellent work of the staff to always be prepared for these meetings.
All right, thank you. And then policy and education, didn't look like there was one scheduled this month, right? Okay. All right, that will move us on to the consent agenda. The items we have for our consent agenda are the meeting minutes from April 25th. Those are in your packet. And then the vouchers for April 1st through the 30th, and then the contract with Village Reach. So any of those items that anybody wants to take separately, otherwise I would be open to a motion. Okay, and so that's a motion. Okay, wait for A, B, and C items. Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda, items A, B, and C. Any comments? Questions? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
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 All right, motion passes unanimously. That will move us on to an executive session item. Michelle, would you like to cue that up for us?
Sure. So the board will go into executive session pursuant to RCW 4230-110-1I for litigation, potential litigation, agency enforcement actions. I would ask that all of the board members and the administrative officer be present. I believe we're going to try and do this in 15 minutes. We'll extend if necessary.
Okay, and just for the record, it is 12:40 right now and heading into executive session. All right, we have concluded our executive session. We did extend, for the record, it is 1:28. So this brings us now to our first action item, which is item number 6. This is 6A, amending the administrative officer's contract, clarifying professional continuing education benefits. And so, Michelle, do you have
Thank
a
you.
briefing on this?
Sure. So, back in December of 2023, after a negotiation, there was a written contract entered into for Dr. Thompson's employment. Part of that included a $3,000 annual authorization to take training to keep her continuing education credits up to date for her social work license. And some confusion arose as she was starting to want to use that as to how that interfaced with the personnel handbook at the health district. So what you have before you for your consideration is an amendment to the original contract to clarify that, specifically to maintain her social worker license. She can attend classes, continuing education classes, up to $3,000 annually. She has discretion as to which classes she's going to take, as long as it's related to social work and her licensing. She doesn't have to get approval from the board, human resources, the controller, to register for the class, as long as she's within the allowance, and that she will timely, within 30 days, submit receipts and a certificate of completion to the finance department for reimbursement. So I'm open to any questions that there might be on that particular issue.
This is an action item, so is there a motion on action item number 6?
Move approval.
Second?
A motion and a couple of seconds. So, any additional comments, conversation? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Motion passes unanimously. Okay, that moves us on to our reports, and we're going to lead off with our administrative officer. Dr. Thompson, take it away.
Thank you. And happy May 30th. Almost getting into summer. Thankful for that. So these are the items that I'm going to go over in my presentation. The internal opioid crisis work group, the strategic plan update, and the feasibility study update. And so we had received some requests externally and internally about what are the things that we're doing in regards to the opioid crisis. And that resulted in a report that we presented last month. And we also started an internal opioid crisis work group. Our first meeting was May 9th, and we have 3 basic goals. One, to make sure that we all know what we're doing, within the health department. The second goal is to make sure that none of us are duplicating efforts. So we need to make sure that we are not overlapping, okay? And we want to build synergies with our community partners. And then the last piece is making sure that our communications that are going out around the opioid crisis are consistent, so that we are basically having one message, one voice. And so, any questions about the work group, the internal work group? Okay. Meets monthly, and so, okay. Strategic plan update. So, pretty excited about this because our current plan is expired. So without a strategic plan for our organization, we're kind of, where are we going? Yeah, where are we going? And as the administrative officer, the strategic plan is critical for me to know what my mark is, right? What am I aiming at? And so we did post a request for proposal. You have a copy of that in your packet along with the questions that were asked. We received 5 responses, and we had 6 individuals that scored the applications. And I'm quite pleased to say that we had 2 external partners who helped us with that scoring, because a good strategic plan includes your partners in the community. And so the process is going to follow the best practice, which will include leadership, employees, the Board of Health will be a part of deciding what our strategic plan is, and community stakeholders. And so I'm really excited about it. And the scores for the proposals ranged between 297 to 518 out of 600 points. And the bids ranged from about 70,000 plus travel to 144 plus $1,000. And so what we recommended and asked for in the consent agenda is to contract with Village Reach. Their proposal was the highest scored out of all of these 6 individuals that participated, and their bid was just over 74,000. And that includes all of those other expenses that the lowest bid did not include. And so the really cool thing, and I'm sorry, I know Kim does not like getting kudos publicly, but I've got to acknowledge her because she actually got a grant to cover the remaining portion. We had $18,000 already from a grant. She got another grant for us to cover the remaining cost. So very happy about that. Okay, so feasibility study. We are in step 1. And what is step 1? It is to identify the impacts on the organization, employees, clients, and community, and measure interest of other OTPs should we, in doing this whole thing, looking at whether or not treatment services should separate from SRHD. This is our timeline. I began the day that you approved me conducting this. My target date for completion of all the interviews and everything is August 25th, and presenting to the Board of Health with a recommendation at the September board meeting. So I got out of place there. So this is just repeating what step 1 is. So when it comes to the internal stakeholder analysis, one of the first things that we did was to launch an employee survey. And in that employee survey, the primary concerns of employees were 85% said benefits overall, 80% said their retirement benefits, and then another concern that was consistent in all of the 54 responses was care for clients, the continuity and quality of care for clients. And that survey remains open. So we, of course, have right around 270 employees, and I wanted to make sure that everyone knows that survey is still open. We aren't allowing people to take the survey twice. They can only take it once, because I do have to have a sense of what percentage of employees has taken the survey. And if you open it up to taking it repeatedly, then you open yourself up to having the same individual take it over and over and over again. So these are the listening sessions that were scheduled specifically for treatment services staff. We have one remaining, and we have had 21 employees who have participated and come and talk to me. And so we have that final one on June 7th. And then we have a listening session for all staff on June 4th. And for client input, developing a survey that will be provided to clients in a hard copy survey so that they can give us their thoughts, their opinions, their concerns. And I'm developing that with treatment services input. And then we'll leave it open for 2 weeks and a day. That will make sure that we get everybody that we serve has the opportunity to respond to the survey. And by that time, I will also have a sign-up sheet available that they can sign up and come and talk to me as well. Kind of an open door. I'll be here for the time period. So now, external stakeholder analysis. Better Health Together is working with us to help us to put together an in-person meetings so that specific stakeholder groups can come and talk about the basic questions that I've been asking everyone. And so we're going to have a group that has tribal feedback. We're going to have one for behavioral health, medical, and social determinants of health stakeholders. And then we're going to have a third one with the broader community. And I anticipate that those will probably happen in July or August, because we're already faced with June tomorrow, or Saturday. And then I am working to, Anne and Dr. Velazquez have helped me to begin the process of scheduling key informant interviews with healthcare system leaders, and that does include folks like at Frontier Behavioral Health and the other stakeholders like that. And then I did meet with Justin Johnson at the county on the 15th, and that was he provided me with some excellent input and direction on how to proceed. So I appreciate the time I spent with him. And then we're having town halls. These are going to be Zoom, and my understanding from our communication team is that these will be made public. The times and everything with the links are started to be made public like today. And so each of these are going to be Zoom and open to anyone that wants to attend. Yes?
Will they be recorded for playback?
I haven't thought about that. I'll find out. Okay? Okay. And then just what we've done so far with communications is that we released the press release on the 25th when you said, yes, go ahead. Then put out that I gave the preliminary survey results out to employees so that they knew what the results were. And then on May 5th, there was a spokesman's article, and May 9th, there was an inlander article. And so now we're going to that second step, analysis of interest. And so I really won't dig into this until probably mid-June, July type of thing. So I have reached out to Behavioral Health Group. They were one of the ones that were very responsive, and so have been talking to them, asking them questions about how they run their OTPs in relationship to what I'm learning about how we run ours to identify the differences and what makes us different. But I'm also going to be talking with Pioneer Behavioral Health, Frontier Behavioral Health, New Horizon, Tribal Partners, and CHAS. And so, do you have any questions on the update for the feasibility study? Or anything else? Yes.
Oh, thank you, Dr. Thompson. So I would assume with all those different providers, when you're interviewing them, you talked about, you probably have it in here, but just the types of patients with different types of insurance or lack
Exactly.
thereof.
Yes.
And I know at the health district, we work really hard with our treatment services to make sure everybody is served.
Yes.
And look for all sorts of ways to help sliding scale. We think we talked
Yes.
about that at the last board meeting.
Yes.
So you'll be asking all those other providers,
Exactly.
how do they, what percentage of folks they serve at different income levels and,
Right.
and how they help subsidize? Okay,
Yes.
that'd be good to know.
And we also serve special populations, like
Right.
pregnant women. And so we really wrap them around with all kinds of supports to help them be successful. And veterans, same thing. And actually, all of our clients, we really wrap them with as many supports as they are willing to follow up with. So we offer them all kinds of supports and direction and how do you access things. So bus passes and to help them get there. So okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Thompson. That brings us next to the financial report. Kim?
Hello, good afternoon. Couple notes before I go into the financial report for April. Just wanted to let you know what's been happening in the finance division this past month and several months prior. I'm pleased to report that we filed our 2023 annual report with the State Auditor's Office yesterday. The deadline was yesterday, end of day. It takes many months to compile and review and double check and triple check. So thank you to the finance team and everyone that was involved in that process. It is a marathon to get to that point. So we're breathing pretty good today. What that also means is that the 2023 audit can begin at any moment. So I already received a phone call from the State Auditor's Office a couple weeks ago indicating when we'd be available. So I did let them know June 1st or later. So it's not scheduled yet, but they'll be getting started. I suspect it'll be remote again, as it has been for the last several years, and that's worked really well. That audit, the 2023 financial statement and federal single audit, have to be filed with the state clearinghouse, the federal clearinghouse, by September 30th. So you'll hear more about what the audit operations are, and there'll be at a minimum, there'll be an audit entrance conference document shared, but we can also have a Teams meeting to introduce the audit and the areas they'll be looking at, and then there'll always be an audit exit conference to close the audit out. So that's what's coming next. And then also beginning in June, we're starting the development of the 2025 budget. So we'll be looking forward as well as wrapping up looking backwards. So we'll be looking at 2025. The finance department will be putting together the templates and the schedules, and then our division directors and managers will begin developing their budgets just after the 4th of July holiday. So there's never really a quiet time in finance anymore, I would say. But to wrap up here with our April financial report, we would expect our expenses and our revenues to be around 33% for 4 months out of the year, and expenses are at 31%, so we're a little under budget there. And our funding is at 29.6. And I want to point out, as I do most months, our indirect federal and our state grants, the two funding sources at the top, under funding, they get billed the month following the expenditure. So we have not billed the majority of those funds. We also, in the month of April, If you notice on expenses under services, we have 3.5 million of payments going out to providers and other services. That's almost double what we would expect in the month of April, and that's just timing on those payments. The March provider invoices were paid early in April and then again at the end of April for the months of March and April. So we're a little heavy there. So what that does is it shows that we have a fund balance decrease of over $1 million as of this moment in time. But I'm not concerned. It's really timing of the billing that we do for our grants. We do have 50% of our Spokane County contribution that helps us with our cash flow. So thank you, commissioners, for that. And then also our foundational public health services funding, we're at 62.9% ahead of time for the year. So that again also helps us. We receive those funds in advance of the expenditures. So we just track that we fully utilize those dollars. So even with the $1 million fund balance decrease through April, we still are at 21% in our unassigned reserves, and our goal is 20%. So even though the numbers are down, we're still above that 20%. Of course, board emergency, we don't touch that without a Board of Health resolution, so we have $1.5 million. And then our assigned reserves are in those intended purposes for a future date. And so we currently, as you probably are very aware, that we're having the roof replaced right now, and then we've had our windows restored as well. So some of that is coming out of the assigned reserves here, and our total reserves then are $16.6 million ending April. And I still leave that little caveat about 2023 year end has not been audited. So just again, if there was any slight adjustment, those numbers in the box would change, but I'm not anticipating it.
Any questions for Kim? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Right, that brings us next to our health officer report. So Dr. V.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I hope I don't lose my voice. For some reason, I seem to be losing my voice. I don't know why. Not intentional, but anyway, I have a few things that I want to give you a quick update. Most of this I can go through fairly quickly since some of it is a review of things we've discussed, but I'm going to give you some perspective of where are we at with a number of issues that the team is working on and some of the things that we have been working on with the community partners. So the first thing that we're going to talk is a little bit about our avian flu or avian influenza. I'm sure we've been hearing about this for the last couple of years. And the reason for that is because we've had, since 2003 up to May 15, about over 800 human cases around the world. We have about 52% mortality. And as I show you some of the slides, one of the concerns is how this is moving to other species, etc. So this is just, I don't know, I found that kind of interesting because depending on what domestic animal you're talking about, including chickens, it could be more severe or a little milder. So we'll talk about that too, because there is a reason why we're classifying it that way. So just a little bit of a quick summary here. We saw this initially in wildlife for the most part, then moved on to domesticated animals such as poultry and others. And with that, we started to see the transmission to humans. Now, up here, you see this nomenclature, highly pathogenic avian influenza. And I'll talk about that a little bit because this is actually what concerns us at this point in time, as opposed to the general avian flu that we have seen for the last 20 years or so. So quick summary. I know this is very text heavy. Kelly always tells me, don't put so much text on your slides, but this is for reference. I'm not going to go through all of it. There's 4 types of influenza viruses. Typically when we're talking about domesticated animals and wild animals, we're talking about influenza A. Most types of influenza A can infect these animals, and actually one of the things that we do know is that wild birds, for example, are a reservoir where this virus exists in nature. And now we also know that can be transmitted to mammals, which is not something that we saw in the past. So it's something to keep in mind. So we are classifying this avian influenza viruses in two categories: a low pathogenic avian influenza, which is what we saw most commonly, basically meaning the clinical condition was not severe enough. So we saw a lot of wobbly chickens, basically, I guess probably the best way to look at it, wouldn't feed properly and so on and so forth. We're seeing now the second category, which is a highly pathogenic avian influenza, which is causing much more severe disease, not only in birds, but as we talk about over the next few slides, we've seen this move into mammals. And one of the concerns is, will it move into humans? And we're going to talk about that in a couple slides. So this is the evolution of it. Just to point out, we became aware of this particular virus about in the 90s. By the mid-2000 plus, it was moving into the rest of the world. We actually saw it first in China, then moved to the rest of the world, Asia, Europe. And over the last 4 years or so, it has made its presence known in the US and Canada. And in the US, as you have probably seen in the news for the last couple of years, has caused the destruction of hundreds of thousands of animals because of the potential for contamination. So this is as of last week, and what we have right now is about almost 10,000 wild birds have been identified, and that is over a period of time. I'll show you that slide in a second. That's a lot of domestic poultry. That's why the price of poultry and eggs has fluctuated a lot over the last few years. And one of the things that we've seen more recently is this transmission to cattle. Now, this was as of the end of last week. As of today, that is actually, I think it's 67 herds that have been infected. Thus far in cattle is also presenting somewhat mild inability to feed. The cows don't feel that great. You can tell they're not following their usual behavior in feeding patterns, but we have not seen severe enough like we have seen in poultry where it can actually be lethal. So one of the things that we are concerned about is transfer to the human species. This is Michigan, the Upper Peninsula, and this is what they call the mitten for people that live in Michigan. If you live in Detroit, you live in the thumb, right? I lived in Detroit for a few years, so. And this is the state of Texas. And as of last night, we had 2 cases, one in Michigan and one in Texas. As of this morning, we have a second case in the state of Michigan. The biggest difference between those 3 is that the first 2, the humans basically had a little bit of conjunctivitis, which has been the most common type of symptom you see in transmission to humans. This second case in Michigan that was reported this morning, the person actually developed respiratory symptoms and had to be treated with Tamiflu. So that's a little bit of an evolution that, of course, we're gonna track more closely. Now, yeah, question, sorry. Yes, yeah, good question. And for humans, the treatment has been standard like Tamiflu. Nothing, they have not require anything else. In the U.S., we've had other issues in other parts of the world that many of the patients had coexisting and complicated conditions and complicating factors, which is one of the reasons why mortality has been higher in some parts of the world as compared to others. Good point. So we've been tracking this for the last couple of years, and the reason why I bring this up is because this is actually the family that was originally identified in Guangzhou in China, and we know that it's been around the world multiple times already, and this was the transmission from wild birds. We actually have bald eagles in the U.S., many that have been tested positive, to mammals over the last few years. Right now, we do know that if you're tracking specifically the more severe version of the virus, we have seen a lot of that over the last this is since 2003, I think, in pretty much all 50 states. We have identified, and there's a long list of wild birds that have been identified. We also know that as of, with active surveillance, we have seen that in cattle, and in domesticated poultry like chickens, turkeys, etc., pretty much all over the country, which is what we're seeing right now. And when you talk about mammals, we also see kind of a spread, and we see a long list of mammals that are now infected, which was not the case before. The biggest case that we saw about 2-3 years ago was infection in a mink farm in Spain that decimated the mink industry, basically. But here now we have it on everything from larger animals like mountain lions to little things like the Albert's squirrel. And if you don't know what an Albert's squirrel is, which I did not, I had to look it up, is the very tiny one that has the fuzzy ears, has these tufts of hair that come out of the ears. It's a tree squirrel, so it's kind of interesting. I like to know what things are. The other things I knew what they were, that I had no clue, so I did some research. Very interesting squirrel, but we're not going to talk about the squirrel right now. These have been found because there's typically a contact with either a domesticated animal and or someone's property. You could find a dead squirrel in the backyard, like in a bird bath, for example. And one of the issues, I'm glad you asked that. So one of the theories behind the transmission is from wild birds to domesticated animals. There is contact because of the feeding or the water, or the dead animal is found, and that is how it spreads. So that's how they find it. Then they get tested. So one of the biggest pieces of advice that we're going to hear from the Department of Health and many others, if you find a dead animal, don't touch it. Make sure you call the appropriate authorities, because you don't know. It can't be just a car wandered over or just fell off. It may be something different, and that's a very good point. So as of March, we've been tracking this highly pathogenic, as I mentioned. It's moved basically into cattle, and we do know that one of the issues has really caused significant mortality in bird species that, chickens and turkeys and other types of poultry that we keep in the backyard and so on and so forth. Apparently in Spokane, it's very common for people to have chickens in the backyard. Although we don't have large poultry farms or large cattle farms, most of those are Yakima and Central Washington, in Western Washington. But I know the environmental public health team, Ray was here, he's gone, has been in contact with all of our poultry farmers and all of our cattle farmers in the vicinity, providing them guidance and direction and offering PPE and other tools that will help them prevent contamination from their animals that they take care of. So this is where it's at for the most part. One of the concerns that we have in the state of Washington is our neighbors on the other side of the border do have a number of cases. So the reason why this is concerning to us in the state of Washington is only the human potential, but also if you look at milk, cattle, and eggs, it's about a $3 billion industry for the state of Washington. So obviously it is important for us to make sure that we prevent that from spreading into the communities that we serve. So there's obviously a significant economic impact that we can see from one of our major segment industries. What is a public health risk? Well, it's still, and I put this slide together when there were only 2 cases. Now this morning there are 3, but basically, as I mentioned, the original 2 cases had pink eye, the equivalent of pink eye, viral pink eye. The case today had respiratory symptoms. We're not sure exactly how people get it, but you can imagine if you're on a farm, having spent many years on a farm, I mean, there's all kinds of things that are flying everywhere, and you touch them, and you touch. There's many ways that it could potentially be transmitted. We have not determined how that exactly happens. But hygiene and protection seem to be a really, really good idea, which is what we're advising. And it's, the CDC and others are advising the same. And the team upstairs has done a really good job talking to all of our local farmers. Now, in humans, we still believe the risk is fairly low compared to other infectious agents that we have. This is part of the guidance that is being provided to our farmers, just to make sure that not only their employees are safe, but also that cattle and poultry and other animals that are being raised for commercial purposes are also safe, because it could have significant industry impact. Now, one of the best pieces of advice is if you have more than one species in your possession, keep them separate. I know it's very difficult if you have, for example, poultry, to keep the wild turkeys away, because they'll come because of the food, but we need to do the best that we can to make sure we keep our species separate, particularly if these are being raised for commercial purposes. So with that, I'm going to move to pertussis. That's just a quick update. We have about 276 cases in the state of Washington right now. We've had a handful in here. In Spokane County, we do expect to see more. So we're just making sure that all providers are alerted to whooping cough. And the risk factors are basically infants, pregnant women in their last trimester, and those that either work with infants or pregnant women, which includes not only healthcare, but also educators and others. So we have shared all of this information with our providers, our schools, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, to make sure that everybody knows that we need to be on the alert. So if a child presents particularly with this paroxysmal cough, think about whooping cough, because it's here, and more than likely we'll see more cases. So we'll keep track of this. It's one of the, I don't know, I think 23 conditions that we're tracking right now, so we'll keep you posted on that one. Now, you may recall I gave you an update of the fentanyl roundtable and the last meeting, and we mentioned that with the 3 goals that were identified for immediate, not immediate, but for now. And by the way, the fentanyl roundtables are recorded, so we do have the recordings and we do have the notes and presentations. But we identified 3 key targets. One was to do a community assessment that is comprehensive and updated with a defined frequency. Second was to work on high-impact individuals, and there's a small work group that's all working on that process. And the third was, on the basis of that, determine how can we do a pilot project. Now, since we started, the City of Spokane is looking at what's called the hot spotters, which is the equivalent of high-impact individuals, mainly focused on healthcare initially, which has not been active process for the last few years, but they're thinking about the potential of bringing back through an RFP maybe a group to provide some of that, and it's basically intensive coordinated care around an individual that is a complex case and disproportionately utilizes resources. That's kind of like the theory behind that. So we've already met with the city, and we're happy to provide some of the mechanism if it's appropriate, and see if we can all work together on the same thing, because it will make perfect sense for us to do that. So let me go on the objective number 1, which will be completed probably over the next 2 or 4 weeks, which is a community assessment. We use a process called resource mapping, so all the credit goes to our data center. They're the experts on this. I don't know how to do any of this, they do, but that's why they're here. And it's a process that has been used for a variety of other reasons. But basically what we did is on April the 10th, we identified this is number 1 target. By April the 15th, the team had already started to aggregate all of the currently available information out of all resources that are in the community. Through between April and May, we released that to some of our partners to make sure that we got their input. Now we went out back to the community for a second round of information, and the goal is to have this completed by probably mid-June, which is very doable, according to the team. And what we're going to do is look at 2 big criteria. One is service types. So we're not just looking at a service type, we're looking at all the services that could be provided that could impact the fentanyl crisis that we have. Those are clearly defined. The categories are very clearly defined as part of measuring things, and being able to define exactly what you're measuring. So that was part of the original process, like what is that we're going to look at. Then the data elements that will go in there will be available to all. So this is like a snapshot of one of the 10,000 lines, and basically provides you who is doing what, where, how, if they take insurance, what the payment is. So we have a lot of information that will be updated on a quarterly basis. There's no single one that is being updated on a quarterly basis right now. And this will aggregate everything in the community in one place. So the data center here has agreed to keep these up and running, has minimal impact on our staff's time, because this is part of what they do, and they do it really well. So this will be made public probably sometime later in June, so the community knows where it is. This is not for individuals that are seeking treatment, although you certainly can get the information, but this is aimed more at everybody else that may need resources and or identification for who can do what. One of the upgrades that we're already thinking about, probably not before we release it, but right after we release it, is to link links of, so for example, if I'm an individual and I go like, I need treatment for X, something that will bring the links up so you can click on those as an individual. That's a little bit more complicated because of the algorithms, so on and so forth, but we're already thinking about that. This is something that any of the cities that have tackled this issue, this is kind of like the first step that most of them have pursued first. Let us know what is it that we have. Okay, so this is where we're at. Great job, and I'll keep you updated as we continue doing this. So with that, we're going to move on to some very quick updates, public health update. So syphilis, you've heard me talk about it before. The short version of the story is in 2003, we had about 2014, we had 27 cases. In 2023, we ended up with 380. We have 188 thus far. So we're on track to surpass that. And one of the concerns, it has moved from the narrow population in which we saw transmission initially, mainly men that have sex with men, and other risk behaviors. We've seen that move into the rest of the population. We have a lot of younger people. We also have a very high number of women in childbearing age, which is one of the reasons that as of yesterday, we actually have 6 cases of congenital syphilis. The highest number we ever had was 2019, we had 7. We're not even through the basically the first quarter of the first half of the year, we already have 6. So one of the things that we've done, the team and I have spent a lot of time with our providers. So we have provided training with not only to our traditional healthcare providers, but also to all of the ERG centers and acute care facilities and emergency rooms. Because many times people come in not because of this, but because of something else. May not have prenatal care. That would be the perfect place to do the testing. So anyway, we are launching a public awareness campaign. You probably have seen the billboards that just went up. And Kirsten Duncan and I, she's our lead in disease investigation upstairs, we're writing an op-ed, I have to pronounce the ed, for explaining to the public why is it that we're doing this. So between May the 24th and June the 30th, we'll see upwards of 30 plus of these billboards going up. And I do want to say thank you to our emergency preparedness and response team upstairs, because we were able to pay for this through those funds, because this is kind of, it qualifies on the criteria of how can you apply emergency dollars for a surge in a particular disease, and this qualifies as a pretty big surge for that particular disease. So this is like one of the ones that you will look at. This is another one. There's also going to be a fair amount of advertising, particularly in some of the magazines and others that reach other segments of the population that may not be looking at the spokesman, for example. just to make sure that we're getting everybody. There's also written material that's being released and shared. So we're using all of our community partners to spread as much as we can throughout the community. So more to come on that. So I appreciate the team's effort, because I know it's a lot of work to get these things done, but we've been trying to address as many segments of the community as we can. So with that, I'm going to move on. This is the my avatar that communications put together for me, except I don't wear green. But these are the SRHD colors, so it works very well. We started a 3-part series on PFAS. First one was May the 8th, the second one was yesterday. First one, mainly this is what PFAS is. Yesterday, why is it that we're talking about it here in this community, and what is the impact? We've been in communications with our friends from the West Plains, Department of Ecology, Department of Health, and participated in a lot of stuff. More to come on that. We're getting some very good reviews from people about the facts, and I'll keep you posted on what else are we doing in that particular area. Now, this is our team at Bloomsday, so we had a whole bunch of volunteers, and we do have a whole bunch of volunteers that will be at Hoop Fest. You'll see that too. And then this was our Vax Expo, came back after 4 years, May the 1st. That was a room, I happened to be talking at the time. Probably see that maybe that's why they gave me the picture, but more importantly, so this is Jenny Horeshny, one of our public health nurses that is an epidemiologist up in the disease prevention and response. She did an amazing job of doing a continuum of communicable disease over the last 10 years. So great reviews. We had about 120-something people, which is pretty good after 4 years of nothing. So we're thinking about what else do we do for next year. With that, I'm going to stop here and see if you have any questions. Yes, ma'am.
Can you send out the fentanyl roundtable videos to us, or link them so that we can watch the videos? Or you said they're available.
This recorded, sure. I don't see why. No, it's public information, so I don't know how to do it. But I will find somebody that knows how to do it. I'm sure our technical folks know exactly how to do it. And we're recording them for a couple of reasons. Number one is it's a public meeting, basically. But more importantly, so when we transcribe, we want to make sure that we're being accurate on what the meeting notes are for each one of the meetings, because those get distributed very widely. Good
So
point.
either one would be fine, the video or the transcribe.
We'll give you access to both. I
Transcription.
mean, there's very good information there. So.
Thank you.
Mr. Waldron.
And on that same note, the slides you had that you were sharing around the assessment process, I don't know if you had those, if you had at the same meeting, if you had any materials, or if you could share just the materials
Sure.
from the fentanyl roundtable. I think it's really interesting.
Okay.
So it's a lot of work. Thanks to the data team for pulling that information together. And sometimes we don't even know what's available in the community, right? And so that was the whole purpose of doing that, is to say, where are our strengths? And then where might we have gaps that we need to invest in as a community, right?
And
So-
where there might be potential collaborations, so we're
Right.
not overlapping.
So there's not, overlapping
Yeah.
efforts.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yep, we'll get you. I'm looking at Ann because I'm sure she'll remind me and make sure that I get it to you, or we'll get it to the board. So, any other questions? Sorry. Okay, well, now I think I'll thank you, and you have a much more interesting topic now than mine, so.
Okay. All right, next we are joined, this is our agency report, and it's going to be IT Cyber Defense Strategies and Initiatives.
Good afternoon. It's great to see some familiar faces here. And I shouldn't be impressed, or maybe I shouldn't be impressed, but I'm super impressed with the breadth of knowledge Dr. Velasquez has. Everything from bird flu to syphilis, pertussis, all the outreach he does. So thanks, Dr. Velasquez, for being our health officer. It's really impressive. My name is Naji Sehanla. I'm the IT security analyst here at the Health District. I have been here for 16 years. And I've been the IT security analyst for the last 2. In my time here, I've been in media, so maybe you've seen me here at board meetings, setting up, and while we talk about board meetings, or at least I do, a special shout out to Ann and everybody else, echoed Commissioner Kearns' sentiment. Thank you for everybody who puts this on. Behind the scenes, behind the wall, there's Christian Anderson. He's streaming and does a lot of the technical setup, so thanks, Christian. He told me to stand in front of the camera and right in front of the mic today, too, so here I am. So thanks to all of you. I'm here today, very briefly, I've only got 80 or 90 slides, so it should take probably an hour or two to go through all of this. I kid. We'll just talk briefly about the SRHD IT program, our strategies when it comes to cyber defense, some things we're doing. To start, let's just introduce our team. We're a team of 7. We've got Robert Whitney, Forrest, Christian, Chuck, Dave, and myself. Robert and Whitney are joining me here in the room today. Robert is our program manager. We're super fortunate to have him as our manager, and Whitney holds it all together and does pretty much everything we ask her to do. I should say that when Robert found out we were going to be on YouTube today, he was adamant that he'd be in front of the lectern and you today, but he acquiesced and gave it to me, but demanded that all questions and compliments, or rather complaints, go to him. So if you've got anything, that goes to him. The photos from a weekly meeting, we meet every Tuesday just to talk about our own initiatives. So I'm the security person. I talk about security in the meetings, and everybody else talks about their own initiatives every week. So we stayed up to date. It's a great team. I'm really fortunate to be a part of that team. I should emphasize when it comes to cyber strategy and cyber defense, there's really no beginning or end. It's always ongoing. There's always a moving target. So we're always chasing something to fight off. We do take, we're a team of 7, so we're not large. We've got somewhere around 275 or 80 employees here at the Health District, spread across 5 different buildings now. We've got actually 6, 4 WIC sites, 8th Avenue site, and our building here at College Avenue. So we're spread out. So we lean on authoritative, what I always call authoritative sources like NIST, National Institute of Science and Technology, CISA, and then MSISAC. These are different organizations that handle cybersecurity at different levels, federal, national, local, state. And we lean on them because we need help, we need guidance, and that's where we get it. They're very authoritative, highly regarded sources for that. And on the left, there's a triangle, and that's our data. That's really what we're here to protect. Our data, it's on Microsoft Surfaces, in the cloud, on our file shares, on servers. Could be anything, but that's what we're here to defend. And we're here to defend the confidentiality, the integrity, and availability. In tech circles, we talk about CIA. If any one of those are compromised, that data becomes not necessarily meaningless, but the public doesn't trust us very much. Let's just put it that way. So we try to defend all 3 aspects of data. As I mentioned, we communicate constantly, so it's not just me in IT security. It's Robert, Whitney, all of us at our meetings when anything ever comes up. Everybody has their own level of expertise, which is very high. They're easy to collaborate with. So it's not just me. It's the whole team working together. Our strategy starts, at a very basic level. Maybe it's called low-hanging fruit, but we do things like put web filtering in, so you don't go to sites you shouldn't on the internet. Those are blocked. We have a safe where we keep our gear, but there are other types of, we protect our hardware there. But we have other kinds of physical security that you are obviously familiar with. Surveillance cameras, locks on things, sign-in logs, and our offices. Something we put into place a few years ago was we just decided to lock our offices. If somebody gets into the IT office, it's a big fat target, so we just decided let's lock our doors when we leave. So you've got to get into the building. Then you've got to get into our IT office. And speaking of our office, if you ever want to join us, come say hi, need some help with anything, we're up on the 3rd floor, room 355. So come knock on our door, and we'll be there for you. So locking doors seems like an easy thing, but we only started doing that a few years ago. So it's low-hanging fruit. And then in the lower left, something you used to see with Windows on your computer a lot, something asking you for permission. Do you want to install this? You're going to need admin credentials. So we don't give people here authority to do everything. You can't install software on your machine. You can't change the way it's configured. We'd have not just 280 different ways that machines were set up, but millions of different ways. It'd be the Wild West. So we'd lock down those things. Those are good, easy examples of low-hanging fruit. That's where we start with the easy stuff. Then we move on to what I think we're very fortunate to have, and that is some advanced tools that I don't think a lot of people have. Much like we lean on authoritative sources like NIST or CISA, we lean on Microsoft heavily. In case you didn't know, we're a big Microsoft shop. Everybody here's got a Surface. And we are fortunate, Robert, kind of along with some other staff, led us down a road to acquire some security tools that Microsoft provides. So now what we have is a suite of Microsoft E5 or Enterprise 5 tools, security tools. It's a big suite of tools that sort of stands in for people. The tools will do things that you need a lot of people to do. And so there's a big economy of scale, lots of efficiency. So we lean on Microsoft tools. Within that E5 package, we've got a security center, a purview center, which is compliance around data loss protection and things like insider risk management that we can access. Exchange is our Outlook, so we monitor our emails and have email security there. And Enter, that's the identity. Each one of us, including you on the board, have an identity with the health district. We want to know what's going on there, protect it, look for strange things. So more advanced tools there. Also, Robert was able to work with our administration and get us some support with Microsoft. So now we have an engagement every year with Microsoft that allows us to have engineering hours. So if we ever need help with them, they provide assessments, they provide engagements even to further our cyber stance even farther and strengthen it. We went through an assessment late last year. We're going through more right now. I don't mean to brag too much, but one of our assessments showed us at the advanced category. The indicators there are everything from how secure your device is, your identity, the data, and we rate really highly, but we're always working there. And we also work with low cost or free resources in our state, like the state auditor's office. They offer free security audits, so we try to take advantage of everything that's possible. We want that introspection from anybody that we respect that can help us help protect that data, protect the integrity of the agency, and remain as secure as possible. I should put this slide a little bit earlier. I think education, technology can only take us so far. It's the person on the, there's a terrible term I'm going to use, it's called PEBCAC. You can use this if you want. PEBCAC is problem exists between keyboard and chair. And that's the person. So the technology can only take us so far. It can only protect so much. But it's the person at the end that we really need to reach. And we do that because we want people to see themselves as part of our IT team, as part of our security team. So what we do is we partnered a long time ago with a company in town, Stronger International. Heather Stratford's the owner of Stronger. You may have seen her out and about in the community. She spun off a product called Drip 7, and it's a cybersecurity app that people can use online, here at work, very short amount of time needed every day, answer a question, become more educated, and become part of our team even more tightly. So we've got an app that people can use to test their knowledge. There's a leaderboard. They can see where they're at. On an average day, we get about 60 people on that participating daily. More over time, but daily about 60. So we're trying to increase that knowledge, that awareness, so that people aren't that problem between keyboard and chair, that they're looking out for us, they're looking out for themselves, they're looking out for the agency. And then we have a thing called IT Corner that we started about just over a year ago. So every Thursday at 9 a.m. we have a live stream using Teams, and we broadcast to the agency topics about IT. Whitney wrangles it together. I host the show. We talk about everything from how to use Outlook, Teams, what to do with AI, phishing emails, different variants, everything IT related, just so we create that marketing outreach and people see us, they know where we are. Hopefully they trust us and that they can reach out to us. Like I said, this is kind of I kind of set this up like a plan, do, check, act, cycles. Like, okay, let's, where do we go? So now we're acting, and the continuous improvement really is the act. What do we learn from what we see here at work, what our users are doing, what tools do we have, and where can we go? So we're moving towards more advanced security than honestly most people our size have. We're implementing things like Windows Hello for Business agency-wide, so you can use biometrics like your thumbprint or your retinal scan to log into something. Multi-factor authentication you probably see with your bank or other apps, maybe even at the city or county. We require it, A lot of places surprisingly don't. But we're requiring an even higher level. You can't just use a text or a phone call anymore. You have to have an authenticator app with a one-time code. Makes it even more secure so people can't step in and intercept that text or phone call and log in as you. And then single sign-on. Single sign-on is a technology that's been around a long time. But once you authenticate here at the health district with your account, we tie applications that we've approved to our infrastructure, and now you can use your health district credentials to log into those apps. So we create that chain of security all the way from your initial sign-in on your Surface to your personalized app that you may be using in your day-to-day work. We have system identity configuration. So on your iPhone, you can't install apps. You do have to have the Authenticator app on, or the company portal app. So we have some telemetry. If you lose your phone, we can find it, we can delete it, we can do other things to it. So configuration profiles, you can't use Office outside the United States. So we have lots of tools where we can lock down what you can do. Obviously, there's a trade-off between productivity and security, but we run that line as tightly as we can. You can see an indication of one of the profiles there we've got in place. Then, again, to Roberts and Whitney's credit, they, over the last several years, have done something which I think is really key to security, and that's this really broad establishment of policies and procedures. Without a procedure, again, it's the Wild West. I might say one thing or do another, and another IT technician might say something else, but we all have a real hard, fast set of policies and procedures that we present to staff, that we put ourselves through whenever we have a task. So that just tightens things up. There's no variability or very limited variability in the way we do things. And everybody's on the same page. So with that, I will say thank you for your time. It's not often we get the opportunity to stand in front of the board, so thanks again. And like I said, Robert's willing to take any complaints or questions that you have, but I could do the same too. So thank you very much.
Any questions, comments? Councilman Cathcart.
I'm just wondering, I know the website has a lot of reports and some dashboards and stuff embedded in there, but does the health district have any sort of a API or anything for third-party access, direct access to data that they could sort of pull and manipulate?
On our public-facing
Yeah.
website? No, not that I know of. The public-facing website is hosted outside of here, largely for security reasons. We don't want the public entering our infrastructure. So not that I know of. There may be aspects on there that can be, but like I said, we're a large Microsoft shop, so tools like SharePoint and Teams are really easy, good ways to be able to share that. So if you have some requirement for information, data, outreach, it's very likely that there's a SharePoint team / group here at the health district that we could turn you on to, make you a member. You've got an account already, so now you're part of them and you can see everything they can see in real time. So wherever your interest is there, let us know and we can match you up. Mm-hmm.
This is Dr. Blankowski. I just had a comment. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
For this presentation, I'm really glad to know this in the way you presented it to a very non-technical person.
I think we all start there as non-technical people, I hope.
I'm probably going to end here, but I appreciate very much the way you presented the information.
Thank you.
That wasn't too heavy into jargon and acronyms. That we would be very useful. This is very informative.
I appreciate it. Thank you for your input. All right, thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Okay, that brings us to board member check-in. So just kind of go around the horn. Patricia?
Here?
Anything for the good of the order?
No.
No? Okay. Councilman Cathcart?
Yeah, I will just say I'm working on, and I don't know if Michelle has it or not, but just some tweaks to the existing smoking lounge resolution. And so hoping to bring those forward at the next board meeting. So.
Okay. All right. Commissioner Waldron? All right. Well, in that case, it is 2:33 and we are adjourned. Everyone have a great afternoon.